Welcome to the Casey Ingram Show Meet Your Candidate series. No spin, no agenda, no endorsements, just the candidate. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the many listeners who submitted questions for this interview. Several of those questions have been incorporated into today's discussion. Questions are not shared with the candidate prior to the interview. If you enjoy the show and would like to stay informed on local issues and elections, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm Casey Ingram. Let's get into it. Anthony Dowling is running for Village of Indiantown Council Seat 4. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thank you so much, Casey, for having me. I'm so glad to be with you this evening.
It's truly my privilege and pleasure to have you as well. So I know you've been running on the campaign trail and then, of course, your personal life and jobs and all that. So, it's a fun time just to take probably about 30 minutes out of your schedule here and we'll have a chat. So
yeah, I love it. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. For those that haven't met you before, can you tell us who Anthony Dowling is and why you're asking voters to send you back to the Village Council?
Yes. So good evening, everybody. My name is Anthony D. Dowling. I'm fourth generation Indiantown. My great-grandparents came to visit from Blackville, South Carolina, and they came to Indiantown. I don't know how they found it, but they got here and they established their roots here. And so I was born here, raised here, and at an early age, the community came together to raise money for a nonprofit that I had started to send me to military school. And so that's one of the first times I saw the community come together to help one of its own. Went to military school, graduated with my bachelor's, my associate's degree, and then I transferred to Florida A&M University where I got my bachelor's in political science. And then I commissioned in the United States Army Reserve as an Army officer. So then I served 8 years as an Army officer and I got medically discharged at the rank of first lieutenant in 2015. During that time, life circumstance with my father, who was ill at the time, brought me back to Indiantown. And little did I know I would be one of the individuals who helped incorporate this great village. Now, there has been conversations about whether or not the village of Indiantown should have been incorporated. But I've been talking about Indiantown values, and one of the Indiantown values is self-determination. We were seeing the things that the county was doing, the services was not being up to the resident standard, and that's why we incorporated. And then to turn around and was fortunate enough to serve on the inaugural council. And so why send me back? Well, over the past 4 years, we have watched this council not listen to any of the residents. We have watched them make substantial change that is going to affect not only the village of Indiantown, but the surrounding areas. And that is very concerning to me because I live here. I want to raise my kids and grandchildren. I want to die here because Indiantown is home. And so I'm running so that we can actually have a voice on the council. We need folks who are on this council to ask the difficult questions, to not be afraid, because at the end of the day, your promise or your I'll say promise is to the residents. And so that's why I'm running, so that we can have a voice on the council, that we can protect our water. We need infrastructure, but we need the right infrastructure that makes sense to Indiantown and the residents. And so those would be the core reasons, on why I'm running.
Fantastic. And we're going to talk a little bit about your record in the past and what you're expecting here in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a 3-person race. The incumbent is Angelina Perez, and then we have Ana Farias.
Mm-hmm.
I had her on earlier today as well.
Good.
And then, of course, you. So you're kind of an incumbent. I've got a new person. We have the incumbent, and then you're like a past incumbent. So we got a good mix in this race.
We do.
Anthony, one thing I want to say, too, with Indiantown, it always was a little shocking for me to hear you were talking about the incorporation is, not only did you were kind of tethered from the county, with approvals, but you were a donor community, meaning you guys were putting out more money to the county than you were getting back.
That's right.
It was,
and I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because Indiantown residents deserve to be not only represented, but we also need to leave the money right here. And so I know individuals don't like the incorporation, but for someone who see what Indiantown could be, it was definitely needed. So thank you for that.
Sure thing. Now, looking back at your first term and the years since leaving office, what accomplishments are you most proud of and what would you do differently?
So since I've left office or while I was in?
When you were in office.
Yes. So first, after elected, we established the government. Now, there had not been a municipality established in quite some time in the state of Florida. So we became the newest municipality. And so I'm most proudest of that, to establish the government. Did we get everything right? No, we were literally building this thing while we were flying it, building the plane while we were flying it. And so I know there was a lot of mishaps and missteps, or things that we didn't know, things that you just learn down the road, hindsight. And so I would say that would be establishing the government. I remember creating the letterheads because there was nobody there to create letterheads. There was some glass in the middle of the street, and they called the village office. Well, there's nobody here. So, we got a vest and got shovels and buckets, and we went to pick it up. And so it's that type of determination and gut, if you will, that I'm most proud of. Another thing is we were able to secure this water plant. And because we were able to secure it, it was one of the best deals that the state of Florida have seen in about 40 years. And I know at one time there was a private investor, but since we were the government, we were able to get loans that turned into grants. So the loan that we got, I can't remember the number at the top of my head, but 80% of that turned into grant money. And so that only would happen if you were a municipality. And so that would be the second thing that I'm most proud of. And then to just have Indiantown have a voice. No longer do we have to go to the county, and yes, we'll work with them, and we did. But now the residents can go right around the corner to talk to somebody, and so those would be my most proudest as serving on the village council.
Anthony, what do you believe is the biggest issue facing Indiantown over the next 4 years?
Water. That is the biggest issue that is facing us, is water. Few weeks ago, the power went out because of the lightning storm. And for 12 hours, Indiantown did not have any water. And so to me, that was a glimpse of what we could be potentially dealing with if we move forward in the direction that we're moving at this time. And so water is such a necessity. Anybody knows that when you control your water, you control your growth. And that's what we were thinking about once we got established as the government and to look at purchasing this water plant, is because we wanted to establish and protect our own growth, not have anybody come tell us. And that's where I believe we find ourselves today. But it is definitely the water.
So with that too, at the water plant now, the village has been able to get I think they just announced it's in total over $100 million worth of grants, which is just incredible. A lot of work to be done yet though, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's concern with the actual infrastructure of the piping.
Yes, because all of that needs to be replaced. One of the things that I was able to do is I lobbied the legislature to get $2.3 million in drainage and flooding for one part of the community. And so now we have the other part that we want to do. And that would include the pipes and things of that nature. And I will give kudos to the council. They were able to secure this funds, but we also need to know what does the new plant would go for. And in some of the records, it is saying that a significant portion of that water flow will go to the data centers. And so, looking at, this is great. We need it, but who's going to benefit the most? And I want it to be the residents, because they're the ones that have the broken pipes. They're the ones that are having brown water. They're
Right.
they're the ones that have gunk that is coming out. And yes, we did it, but there is still work to do.
Okay. So when your 4-year term is over, what do you hope Indiantown looks like? Can you kind of paint a picture for us?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So when the 4 years are over, I would love to say that we gave the power back to the people. We had the people, the residents, have a voice for what they want and what they don't want in this community. I would be most proud of that. Also, economic opportunity. We need it here in the village of Indiantown, but we need it to make sense. We don't need anything that won't be able to employ. We want to be able to employ the residents here. We want them to be able to walk to work. And so I wanted to be able to bring that type of industry, something like a a transportation hub or something of that caliber to where this growth will walk with the city or walk with the village of Indiantown instead of outpacing it. So I would say those would be the two things I would love to leave with as an accomplishment.
Now, what lessons did you learn from losing your reelection campaign?
I learned a lot of lessons. The voices that were attacking us, if you will, they were very, very loud. And I feel that one of the things that I would do different, I would be loud as well, or louder, and making sure that the residents is getting information. While I sat on the first council, we had newsletters and we had, Facebook posts and all of this information in two different languages, Spanish and English, to get that information out. And that's one of the things I think my biggest lesson is to make sure that residents know, because in my humble opinion, they were being deceived. And so, now you have the council not even paying attention to them, not even listening to them. And that would be what I see now and what I wish I would have done then.
How has your perspective changed? Or are there other perspectives? You just said one, but since serving on that council.
Yeah. In the feasibility study, when we were getting ready to incorporate, fire was a big part of that conversation. And when I was elected, again, since we had this roadmap from the incorporators, I thought that was the path. Well, apparently it wasn't. And I can admit to that. However, I would have maybe waited down the road 10 to 15 years or something like that to look at fire rescue. However, now, if this homestead exemption bill passes, then $17 million worth of fire rescue will disappear from Martin County. And I'm afraid that money or those services would affect Indiantown greatly. And so, it may not have been a conversation at that time, but maybe it will be one in the future.
If that Amendment 3 does pass, what are your thoughts for Indiantown? What areas are going to be cut? I mean, the budget is already a shoestring budget. Honestly. So now, and it is only the residential side of the property taxes that would cut. You do have a lot of industrial. We still have the FPL taxes and stuff. So maybe it's not a huge impact, but just kind of want to get your thoughts on that. And also, Anthony, how will you vote on Amendment 3?
Okay. So I'm going to vote no for Amendment 3. I'm not against eliminating property taxes, only because I come from a community that the schools survive off of the property taxes. I'm a product of Indiantown Middle School, Warfield Elementary School. And those services being cut will destroy our community. And yes, 85% of our tax base is from one source. And this is why we have to diversify, because we have to bring more money into the village of Indiantown, because we love our partners, have no issue. However, we want to be able to be self-sufficient, which, in my opinion, is one of the Indiantown values, which why we incorporated.
So during your previous term, you voted to hire Howard Brown as village manager. Looking back today, do you believe that was the right decision? Why or why not?
Yeah. So the situation with Howard Brown and hiring him, we did a national search. And so we had Dan Liffman, who was over the City Managers Association, send us interviews. And at that time, Howard Brown looked like the perfect one to that represented what we were trying to do. Now he is gone. He has been gone. I don't have any interest of bringing him back. I'm sure he doesn't have any interest of coming back. And I think it would be just one of those lessons that we've learned from my previous term to this one. Vet more, make sure that these individuals represent our values and what we're trying to accomplish.
So, when the concerns about him surfaced, including his credentials and experience, do you believe the village responded appropriately? And also, you just said there was some lessons. So what lessons are you bringing forward from that?
Yeah. So I don't think I think the village of Indiantown at that time did the best that they could. I don't think that we were prepared to receive so much backlash or so much from certain individuals. And I don't want to make a distinction because it's in the past now, but doing it differently. Again, I would, if I didn't experience him leaving, I was already off the council with all of this stuff that has now just kind of come up or they're being talked about. I wasn't even there. And so, the only thing that I could do moving forward is to make sure that whoever we hire is representing our values, that are representing our vision, and that is representing what the residents really want.
And this is probably one of the most important issues, as I see, for you, because you are somebody that was on the council that had hired him. And you're going to be in that position again, or the new council member will, because
Mhm.
Taryn Krista has said she's going to step down. So you're going to be going through all this process again. So I think it's really important to ask you, Anthony, what are you going to be looking for your new village manager? What kind of background checks are you going to be doing? What are the key traits?
Mhm.
I know you said you want to represent Indiantown. That's kind of broad. Give me a little more specifically
Oh yeah.
what you're looking at.
Transparency. We want to make sure that we are sharing as much information with the public. I think we have to get out in the community, have someone that will come with us in the community to explain, the budget or explain whatever the topic is. Someone that really is integral. And I don't want to call Howard, I don't want to say he's not, but what I'm looking for now, or what I have my eyes on, is somebody who will be integral, someone who do care about making sure that we get it right, because the residents deserve that. And as you know, when we, myself, the council, hires someone, it's really a reflection of us. And so, when all of this information came out, not knowing any of this, and I'll just leave it there, not knowing it really showed me that maybe there's something that I may have missed. I don't always get it right. and I can admit that. However, we need to take the opportunity to really, really vet someone that will come and be a great representation, not only of the village of Indiantown, but the council that hired them.
And will you be looking in depth for citizen input? Because I'll tell you what, some of the citizens there did a lot of background checks, and they were digging up a lot of things. So they may have some very valuable input for the council.
Yeah. Well, as we were starting in the beginning, that was something that we should have done, looking back at it now, and it would definitely be something we implement, because that person would be a part of this community. And we want to make sure that when they come, the community loves them. And I hope that this council, or I should say, one of the things I would push for is to have a citizen review board, let them, give a recommendation, or let the manager interview with some of the residents, with the resident board, so they can give their perspective. But I want this to be as open and honest as possible, because I want to make sure that we are doing this the right way.
So speaking of citizens groups, of course, I'm sure you remember this as well. The Citizen-Led Comprehensive Plan Review Committee was dissolved early in Mr. Brown's tenure. Why did you support that decision, and would you make the same decision today?
So I can't speak to the comprehensive plan. It doesn't ring a bell as it relates to dissolving it. But what I will say this, in the beginning of this year, this council expanded. They changed the plan to expand Indiantown another 9 square miles. Now, originally, Indiantown is 9 square miles within the boundaries, and we discovered that it'd take about 100 years for us to max out. This council literally did that in one night.
We're going to talk about that more coming up here. I know it. I know it. Let me jump back to this, because it wasn't the comp plan. It was the citizen committee that got dissolved. That was giving recommendations. I guess we're talking about citizen input, and you're talking now. It's so important. So at the time, why did you support dissolving a citizen input committee? And looking back, would you make that same decision today?
I wouldn't make the same decision. I would definitely have this citizen committee. I just cannot recall why. And again, I want to let your viewers know, so that we can get a little grace. Anybody elected or any position only makes the best decision with the information that they have been given at the time. And so whatever that information was at the time, and again, I can't recall because it's been such a while, that may have seemed like the best option. I don't know if we didn't have enough residents involved or whatever the case may be. But now, as we're seeing what is happening in this current council, I think it'd be very, very beneficial is to slow walk. And again, that was one of the things that I wanted to do in the first council. But when you're building so much and so many things are new, everything is scrutinized. Everything is under the microscope. And I understand that now, so attack doesn't, it may come off as an attack, but it could be just a constructive criticism. And that's another lesson that I learned.
Oh, guys. All right, Anthony. So, since leaving office, it's become public that a significant amount of the village's financial records from the early years of incorporation could not be located. While no criminal charges were filed, many residents remain concerned about how that could happen. As someone who served on the council during that time, what is your reaction and what lessons should the village learn from it?
Yes. So apparently these records got wiped after I left. So I want to make that clear. And so I'm not sure why they were not backed up. I would also think if we've submitted these financial records, wouldn't they be somewhere in some type of backup? And so that raises a lot of questions for me.
Right.
So now if it was me, I would move for criminal charges, because we have to not only set a standard, but we have to make sure that we are being compliant and open and honest with our residents. And so if that would have required that to happen, I wish the council would have did it. Instead of, just talking about it on Facebook, let's put some real action behind this so that we can have the courts decide what happened or whatever the case may be. And so that's one of the things I think I will be working on as we move forward, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, of course, is to make sure that if folks are criminally negligent, they need to be brought to justice. And I hope that we can do that.
All right. So looking back, do you believe the village council exercised enough oversight over the village manager in the financial operations during the early years?
So the council was new. I don't think anybody had served on a board of sort, with the exception of myself. Don't quote me on that, but I think so. We were still getting used to, Robert's Rules of Order, still setting up government, all of these type of things. Everything was brand new. And so as a result of that, we definitely have to have more insight because we didn't have anybody, for any position. So we had to find them and throw them, basically get things going because services were being needed. And so, but yeah, we definitely need insight as it relates to who's the best or the most qualified to be over the financial records. And and one of the things I'm going to push for is that now we make sure that every audit, every document, everything is uploaded and saved and backed up, because I have a feeling that in 4 years, a conversation like this may be happening again.
So that's exactly what I was going to ask you. So you already answered it. I was going to ask you, moving forward, what kind of safeguards are you going to put in place? So perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you see the council overseeing? It's basically your village manager and the attorney. You guys are the boss over those folks.
Mm-hmm.
What safeguards are in place to keep an eye on what they're doing again? Because we had the Howard Brown issue, and we just gotta, like you said, it's a new village. Everything was new. It was new for everybody. So you have the benefit of experience and sitting in that seat while things were happening, and now you can sit back. You've been out of it for 4 years and look back and say, oh, that was happening, and maybe at the time it just didn't, like you said, it didn't appear so. You're just taking the information.
We're just moving, yeah.
Yes, yes. So just kind of moving forward, how do you see as a council member your responsibilities of making sure that village manager, because you're going to have a new one, so it's going to be all.
Yes.
Are you just going to take their advice again, and just say that's what they recommend? That's the village manager. That's the person that should be telling us, how we should. Vote?
Well, I'll say this. Obviously, I love the idea of the citizen committee, bringing that back, but then as it relates to choosing the next person or choosing who that the city manager or the attorney will be, we need these folks to be integral. We can't have backroom deals and conversations, which is happening on this council now, at least from what I perceived. And so we have to have folks that are going to stand up and say, no, this is what the council wants. But again, we as the council have to do an investment on who these two individuals could possibly be.
So let's move on here. You've been on the hot seat with the past record. Let's move forward. Indiantown is growing rapidly. What do you want the village to become over the next 10 to 20 years?
Yeah, a place where more people can call it home. That would be the first place, a place where economic opportunity exists. I believe that you should be able to be born in your community, work in your community, serve in your community, live in your community, and also die in your community. And so I would want to establish Indiantown as a place where economic opportunities exist, and we have a culture of family and love and community. We're going to help each other, and that would be the first thing. Economic opportunities. You mentioned this a while ago, but this mobility hub where we are growing together. Pieces of this hub will grow as the village of Indiantown grow, because we'll be able to have jobs. So the economic opportunity is really what I want to see in the next 20 years, the next 10 to 20 years. And then I think the third thing is we definitely have to make sure that our water is the best that it could be. And whatever investments, whatever grants, even loans, whatever it takes to make sure that the people of Indiantown have clean water, the
Right.
basic necessities.
Agreed.
Those three, I would say I would love to see in the next 10 to 20 years.
Now, speaking of the economic development, what types of businesses and development would you actively encourage to come to Indiantown?
Yeah. So with this hub that I was telling you about, Indiantown used to have a train station, and I know Stewart is having some heartburn with Brightline. I would want to see if they would want to set up a shop here, because Indiantown used to have a train station. And so, it would almost be bringing back something that was historically for Indiantown. We were like the gateway to the West, essentially. So that to me is what types of jobs that we have to bring. We have new development that is coming in. And though these are professionals, these are, teachers and firefighters and doctors, and we want to be able to have a place for them as well, because I don't think they would want to drive 30 minutes to work either.
Right.
So I would say creating those type of businesses. And there's so many out there that we can attract, but they have to be the right ones. And that would be my push.
So you say the right ones, specifically what do the right ones look like? And then what are the ones that would not be a good fit that you would shy away from?
Well, I would say the data center, and anything of that nature that is going to affect the natural resources or the community at large. So we don't want any of that. But I'm thinking small businesses. I want to also encourage entrepreneurship, because we want to have business owners. Business owners employ
I just lost residents,
and then that money turns back around and goes to the football field, or it goes to feeding the community, or it goes to something that pours back into the village of Indiantown. And so I can't think of a job of that caliber just yet. However, it has to identify with the village of Indiantown values, where we're able to implement hiring a certain amount of residents or something of that caliber. And so what we'll do is continue to search for those type of businesses that would allow us to attract, that will be attractive to, I guess, the village of Indiantown culture.
So Anthony, what types of businesses and development would you actively encourage to come to Indiantown, and what types of development do you believe simply are not a good fit?
Yes. Indiantown is such a unique place. And I feel like we need to have things that are definitely geared towards the residents. For an example, we need more grocery stores. We need pools. We need amenities, community amenities, so that children have a place to come or have a place to go. They just redid a park. We need more of that. We need walkable spaces. We also, in my opinion, we need urgent care. And right now we have a community health, and they're open only from 8 to 5, and they can't service individuals in extreme emergency. Folks driving to Stewart, that is quite a ways when you're in trouble. And so we need something like that. And I think those would be the things that I would push if I'm elected. What we don't need a data center. And unfortunately, my opponent, Angelina Perez, she voted, her and this council voted step by step to allow this data center to come to Indiantown. And that's something that I know that the residents don't want.
So the village helped secure an $8 million grant to renovate and refurbish the historic Seminole Inn. Do you believe that was an appropriate use of public funds? Why or why not? And what role should local government play in supporting private redevelopment projects like this?
Yes. So private redevelopment, $8 million to restore the historic Seminole Inn. So I believe that the Garcia Group is the owner of the of the Seminole Inn, and to me, I would have used that $8 million for the residents. Now, if private individuals has bought this hotel, then to me, they should be the one to upgrade it and give it the upgrade that it needs, because it does need upgrading.
Mhm.
It is a historic building, and we love it. But tax money should not be taken from the residents, and $8 million is a heck of a lot.
It is indeed. Now, I'm not sure the ownership of it. They were trying to explain it at the meeting. It sounded like maybe Garcia's donating it to the village. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't quite
Okay.
follow along on the whole process of what happened. Should government be in the business of owning, a restaurant or hotel, or if that's what the case is here?
So I'll say this: when we look at our tax base, we have to become very innovative on how we do that, and that may be an option. I wouldn't be totally close to it. However, the village of Indiantown would need to run the facilities or have experience in that area, because we don't want to go buy a restaurant and nobody knows what they're doing. And so, we have to implement policies and procedures that make sense, not only to the residents, but also to the village, to the council.
Now, I know you've been wanting to talk about this. I promised you we would. Prior to the FPL annexation, the village encompassed approximately 9,200 acres. The annexation added roughly 5,700 acres, increasing the village's footprint by about 63%. For years, village leaders have discussed the need to diversify the tax base and reduce reliance on FPL. Yet this annexation significantly expands the amount of FPL-owned property within the village. Do you believe this annexation was the right decision?
So I am all for growth. I am all for responsible growth. Let me get that correct. However, we want to make sure that we're doing this the right way. And for this to be pushed through, to me, it seems like under the cover of night, without much conversation, without much dialogue. I don't believe that this was the right decision. What I would have done is said, hey, FPNL have this on, come to Indiantown and meet with the residents, get their opinion, what they have to say concerning this, not only annexation, but this data center or anything else that may go on that property. But we're pretty sure it's going to be a data center.
So looking ahead, what specific steps would you take to diversify the village's tax base and reduce its dependence on a single major taxpayer?
Yes. We got to increase tourism. To me, I think that is an immediate thing that we can do. We're already having great events here. We need to have more. We want you to come, enjoy the wonderfulness of the village of Indiantown, and it's okay for you to go back home when you're finished. You can either stay for a couple of days, but eventually, you'll return home. And I think that is, again, something immediate that we can do in a short period of time to bring the economic opportunities. But besides that, we definitely need to attract businesses that care about Indiantown, that is willing to grow with us. And if FPNL would have done this a different way, maybe the conversation would have been different. But I know, as for me, we want to make sure that we have individuals who are coming to Indiantown that will bring a tax base, exemplify what we want as a village. So definitely tourism, this economic hub that I mentioned before, I believe that it would grow with the village of Indiantown. As we're growing, more opportunities there would happen. But it has to be things that make sense. So urgent care, as I mentioned before, all of these, in my opinion, would be the ideal.
Should Indiantown continue annexing land? And if so, what criteria should be met before additional annexations occur?
Yeah. So I think at this time, because we almost doubled our space, I think we should take a pause and really evaluate, where does Indiantown want to go? We need to have a conversation with our residents. We need to have a conversation with our stakeholders, because they are important, just as important to this conversation as well. We don't want to leave them out as well. And so we need to bring all of these collective folks together and have that conversation to see what is the vision of Indiantown, what as a resident that we want to see accomplished. A few years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, there was this huge program that happened in Tallahassee called Imagine Tallahassee. And it brought different sectors of the community, nonprofit, residents, pastors, everybody together to see, hey, over the next 10 to 15 years, what do we want our community to look like? And I attended some of the meetings, but Indiantown to me would be that ideal. Let's go back to the basic. Let's all come together. Let's get input. Let's see what the community actually wants. And then we turn around and begin to service the community in those ways.
Okay, so continuing on, you brought it up several times already. Data centers have become one of the most controversial issues facing Indiantown.
Yeah.
You pretty much said it, where you stand today. So, Anthony, do you support a temporary moratorium on the new data center approvals while the village reviews its long-term land use plans and regulations? Why or why not?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason is because the residents feel like they have not been heard. And to me, that is the first step on why we need to stop. Because once the residents understands, then it may not be the worst thing in the world, or, we may come up with a different option. And everybody can still win. That's what politics is about, compromising. And so, but yes, I would, because I want the residents to feel comfortable walking this journey of the data center.
Okay. All right. So residents have raised concerns, about a lot of the issues with it: noise, backup generators, electrical demands. What concerns do you believe deserve the most attention when it comes to data centers?
I would say the first thing is the water. And we discovered that this new plant that is being built, a huge portion of that water will be going to this center. And so we need to protect our water. That would be my first thing. And then we want to talk about the environment. Thomas Powers, he has this wonderful quote. And in the quote, he talks about the critters. And I want to be that voice for the critters, for the folks who are not represented, for the folks who are maybe afraid to come to the council meeting because there's something that they have never done. And so, get them involved, because this heat that comes from the data center will increase the community by like an average of 15 degrees. Today, when we were at the park for Vacation Bible School, it was 91 degrees. Imagine an extra 15 degrees. That is going to kill people. It's going to really hurt our community. And so I would say those two things are the first to the water and this heat that are my priority of why. One of the two of the many reasons why we don't want this data center.
So if a future data center proposal was overwhelmingly opposed by residents, how much weight would that public opposition carry in your decision?
Well, if they oppose it, we have to go with what the residents want, because we are responsible to the residents. They are the ones that put us in office, and they are the ones that ultimately can take us out. And so we have to be loyal to them and what their needs. It's interesting, during my first term, I would have some little old ladies and come and say, I haven't seen you in a while. What are you doing? And to me, that is what Indiantown encompasses. And so we have to treat those type of residents who may not be able to understand the totality of it, may not be able to understand the underlining, but we want to be able for them to walk away with some understanding. And if they don't like it, then I'm going to support what the residents want, always.
So, Anthony, as Indiantown grows, what other infrastructure besides water? That's the obvious and primary one. But what other infrastructure issues are you concerned with?
Well, our village is old. We have old buildings. And so we as a village need to come together to upgrade our amenities. There was a conversation about a city hall some time ago, and that got derailed for a reason or another. But there's no place in Indiantown where all the residents can come together. There's not one, and with the exception of the parks, but like a actual place. And so I would like to establish that place, whether it's the village hall or just a building, community hall. We need a place where all the residents can come, where they all feel welcome, where they all feel comfortable to come in and be a part. And so I would say that, to me, is one of the priorities.
Should new growth pay for itself through developer impact fees, or should existing taxpayers share more of that cost?
Yeah, it definitely should come from the developers, the folks who are bringing the business to Indiantown. We don't want to put the weight on the residents. They have enough weight on them already, just surviving, paying bills and things of that nature. their taxes was raised over the past 4 years. And I know that that means more money coming out of their pockets. So we don't want to tax them anymore. And so the developers or the business folks who want to come to the village of Indiantown, yeah, they definitely need to flip the bill.
So affordable housing is a challenge across Florida. How do you balance the need for housing without losing the small town character that makes Indiantown unique?
And I think that's a web a web that we have to weave, I think, as we moving forward. Because we need growth, but we don't want it to outpace the residents. We need these things, but we don't want to leave anybody behind. We want to move into this new century, but we don't want to leave anybody in the old. And so I think we have to balance that. You know, we have two major developments that are being built as we speak. Maybe there need to be a pause on developments for a while until we can fill out of those spaces. I think for one of the developments, I think, you know, they have like 10 to 15 years to fill out. Well, we can watch that progress and see how that goes, you know, because I don't want the residents to be pushed out of their homes because taxes have risen and they can afford it. I don't want residents to be able to get kicked out of their homes because now they have to determine whether they pay the bills or whether they pay their mortgage. You know, we don't want any of that. And so we have to be smart while we do it. Now, using the lessons that we've learned in the past, or I specifically speak to me, I want to make sure that our residents are walking with us and they don't get left behind.
Indiantown is one of the most culturally diverse communities in Martin County. How will you ensure every resident feels heard, including Spanish-speaking families and those who may not normally participate in the government meetings?
Yes. Well, one of the things we did on when I was on the council is we started a newsletter because everyone does not have access to social media or the internet, even in 2026. And so, you know, we started getting we sent out newsletters in both Spanish and English. And now I believe we need to do it in 3 languages. A Creole, Spanish, and English, because we don't want to leave that community, the Haitian community, out. Another thing that we did that I would do again, besides this newsletter, is actually go into the community. Don't wait until it's election time, but go in. We would have, when I sat on the first council, we would have budget meetings in different places around the community, 4, I think, that we had during that time. And so that every resident could walk to the meeting. Every resident could be right around the corner. And those are the things that the residents deserve because all of this is new. You know, some of them have never experienced a direct line of government. And so we have to be extra careful not to eliminate anyone while we're moving forward. So it'll be those 2 things for sure.
Perfect. You actually covered, I was going to ask a little more in depth how you would reach people that are not on social media or come to the meetings, and you answered that. So
Yes,
it's hard to reach them all, but it's important. So, Anthony, why should someone who has never voted in a village election make sure they vote this year?
Yes. Well, they should vote because you need your voices heard. And whether or not you vote for me or my 2 opponents, you need to vote. Your vote is your voice. And if you don't vote, then you won't have a voice. Now, what makes me distinguish between those 2 is I'm a champion for the people. I will speak up. Angelina, my opponent, she doesn't say anything in the meetings. And you need somebody to ask those questions, those difficult questions, those uncomfortable questions. You need somebody to be an advocate for you. And that's what I would do. And I think that's what makes me different than these other 2 candidates. You know, I love the things that they're doing in the community, but we need somebody to really speak up for the village council or speak up on the village council to make their voices heard because the residents need their voices heard.
Is there anything voters haven't asked you that you think they should know before they cast their ballot?
I would want them to know that my opponents voted for this, Angelina Perez, and this whole entire council voted for this data center. They started in January with the annexation. And then over the next 6 months, they have implemented rules and regulations to allow this machine to come to life. And so I want you to think about that as you go into the ballot box leading up to August 18th, that you want somebody who cares about Indiantown and not about big developers, who cares about the residents and the culture of Indiantown and not about making money or being silent. And so I would say that those are the things that I would say.
And I think the question might have gotten deleted in our storm here, but I want to make sure I ask it. Would you support a moratorium right now in the data centers under SB 484?
Yes, I would definitely support a moratorium. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what issue do you think your opponents are getting wrong about your record?
What do I think they're getting wrong about my record? I think because I was a part of the first council, I think it's very easy to criticize something that has not been done before. And I believe that this is the residual that we continue to hear about this situation. And so that to me is 4 years ago. I've learned so much. We have grown. But this council right now is destroying this wonderful city. And we have to have individuals in there who cares about Indiantown and the Indiantown values.
All right, Anthony. So imagine we're sitting here. It's 2036, a decade from now. Looking back.
2036.
Yeah, I know. It'll be here in a blink of an eye. But looking back, what decisions made over the next 4 years will determine whether Indiantown became a model Florida community or missed its opportunity? And what legacy do you hope you helped create?
Well, I want to help create a legacy where residents feel welcome, where residents feel that they can come and express themselves, however they do it. Of course, we have to be respectful and things of that nature, but I would want to leave a record to where the residents have a voice. I also want to leave a record where we have this economic development, where we can say, hey, we have done these major things here in the village over these past 10 years. I also want to be able to make sure that we have the right jobs, the right industry, the right people that is on the staff who cares about Indiantown, and also our business owners and so on and so forth. And so I believe that those would be the things that I would like to say I'm most proud of in 10 years. Listen, we made sure that the residents felt welcome, that they can come and voice their opinion, and that we brought in economic opportunity that made sense there. Indiantown.
So the biggest opportunity facing Indiantown in one word.
Biggest opportunity that's facing Indiantown in one word.
I'll give you 2 words. I did your opponent as well. So,
well, I would just say potential. We have potential. And with that potential, we have to be good stewards of it. We have to make sure that we are making sure that these opportunities are the right ones. But I do think Indiantown has potential. And if I had to do 2 words, great potential.
There you go. All right. So, Anthony, final question. Why should someone who hasn't made up their mind vote for you?
Yes. And thank you so much again for having me and for that question. So why should somebody who has never voted or who hasn't voted yet vote for me? Well, I would want you to vote for me because you know that I would fight for you. I won't just sit on the dais and not say anything. I would ask the difficult questions, the uncomfortable questions. I want to be a leader for what Indiantown could potentially be. And it's something that would grow with us as we grow. And so if you believe in that vision of having Indiantown values, self-determination, clean water, making sure that we are a community, we respect each other, we help each other, we're there for each other, then I would ask for your vote on August 18th.
And finally, how can voters support your campaign and learn more about you?
Yes, please visit my campaign at anthonyddowling.com. Again, that's anthonyddowling.com. You'll find my platform, my 3 main issues that I'm running on. You'll also find where you can donate. And then if you want to volunteer, we need as many volunteers as we can to join me so that we can get the word out about what's happening in Indiantown. And you don't have to be a resident to volunteer.
There you go. Or donate.
Or donate.
And Anthony said it absolutely right, folks. August 18th, that is the day to vote. Make sure you get out and vote. Mail-out ballots are already distributed. There'll be some early voting as well. But this primary, it's not just a primary, it is the election. You need to get out and vote in Indiantown. Now, the candidate does need to receive 50% of the vote, so there's a possibility it'll be a runoff in November. But if you don't vote in August, you're going to lose your chance to have your voice, as Anthony had said earlier. So August 18th, let your friends and neighbors know. And finally, Anthony Dowling, thank you for joining me on this stormy afternoon. We lost our electricity once through this interview.
Hey, this is Florida weather at its finest.
For sure. It happens every afternoon, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And folks, don't forget, follow The Casey Ingram Show on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube for more real talk you won't hear anywhere else. I'm Casey Ingram. Stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again, Anthony Dowling.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck out there.